Revolution from your bed, welcome. This week has been the most profound podcasting or interviewing experience I've ever had. We have an amazing guest today. Her name is Kharina Kharran. She's a trauma-informed coach from the UK. She was an executive in a Fortune 500, an athlete, a personal trainer, and much, much more. But more than that, she's an incredible, inspirational human being. And when I say an incredible, inspirational, I'm going to use her words. She's a giant. And I've never in my life even suspected that a podcasting experience can lead me to literal tears. Enjoy this episode, and we will have a second part for it because this conversation went so deep that one episode is simply not enough. Enjoy. I never in my life encountered a trauma coach before, so it's just incredible to know that it's existing. And I think that what I want to discover today with you is what you're doing? How is it different from kind of regular high street psychotherapy practice? And what led you to do what you do? And just to have a free chat, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like at the end of the day, when we decide to go into something that we're really passionate about, it tends to stem from a story. We've come from somewhere and we've got a story to tell. And in our minds, we know that story is going to captivate the audience, captivate people in a way that's going to help transform them in some way, because we've all got our part in life. So your story will connect to certain people, my story will connect, but there's a common theme, and which is to bring good to the world, to draw awareness to something we might not know about, and then just to take that to a higher consciousness level so that we can really expand on the awareness, on the techniques, on resources that are out there, even whatever's spoken about in here, and be able to take ourselves as a human being, as an individual, to a higher level, knowing that there is healing after trauma, which is the specific area that I come from, or there is healing after chronic illness, which we both have. So, yeah, it stems from somewhere, and that's kind of where my passion has come from my own journey, where extremely high trauma. And in the last 2 years, I embarked on a journey which was psychotherapy, which was therapy specific, but it was focused on trauma healing, which I didn't realize how bad it had affected me until it got to the point where I already had chronic illness anyway, but it got to a point where I wasn't doing the things, even though I was successful in my career, I wasn't excelling to a point that I knew that I could do, because I was limiting myself because of my own beliefs, but also things like my speech was being affected. I was having constant asthma attacks. I was just depressed. I was staying at home all the time. Like I didn't want to go out, and I knew something had to change. I hit that point, which felt like a break point. Like I felt like I'm going to break if I don't make a decision to change. So that's kind of like where it stemmed from before I go any deeper. But yeah, hopefully that's a good intro.
That's a perfect intro, because you just helped me to connect two major dots in my life in this intro. Before I became a professional patient, as I am, I was really helping people to get their stories out. It's something that was really burning inside of me. And because I was one of the first people in Israel to organize a TEDx event, we didn't know what to do so much. We had limited guidance, so we kind of had to develop our own methodology to train speakers. So I became kind of an unwilling public speaker trainer or storytelling trainer. And I always thought, this part of my career is kind of a bit remote of what I'm doing right now. And how can I kind of intertwine the two? And it's amazing that what you said right now is just drop a coin, because you just started off without even me asking a question, telling about how your story and what you tell yourself and what we tell other kind of shapes kind of who we are. And it's super interesting for me because we're going to talk a lot about trauma today. And I don't know if you know it, Kharina, but I've published a book a few months ago, and in the beginning of the book I'm talking a lot about the physical, the illness of the body, But at the end of the book, because it was such a crazy journey of writing, I realized that my chronic illness is probably deriving from trauma. And it's time to go out on a healing journey. And I just started psychotherapy again. So firstly, I want to thank you for coming. And I want to kind of reconnect those dots. So you told a bit about your story, and I don't want to trigger you into something you don't want to say, but I wanted to ask you a bit about how did you become a coach in general, and then to explain what is the specifically type of coaching that you do, because I never encountered it, and it's so fascinating to me.
I like to be different, put it that way. So I think being different and really stepping into, I'm someone that likes stepping into my internal fear. Like I believe like if I really go into it, I'm going to find something that is going to be pretty special and it is going to take me somewhere else. And that's when like my podcast is Rewriting Fear to Courage. So let's put the podcast aside and just think of the title. And what I do in my work is working with others to rewrite their fear to courage through this journey of being able to detach or desensitize unwanted emotions or sensations from distressing and traumatic memories. I specifically do that. Now, I'd have to touch on my story for it to make sense. So I'm going to touch on it briefly. I'm no longer triggered by my story. I've done a lot of work and I'm really proud of that. So I don't know if you've heard of the Adverse Childhood Experience score. It's something that's there and out there. So my score is 10. Okay. So by the age of 7, it was 10, but there was also some adult occurrences that happened as well. Now, anything I speak about has been reported. So I'll just make that very clear to the listeners as well. So I'm very proud of that. It took me a long time. I reported these things 2 years ago. So I'm not going to go into detail on anything, but I'll just explain the type. So I was adopted and I grew up with a biological mother that basically was a psychopath. Now, it went from mental health to mental illness. However, the actual diagnosis and the understanding of that, because we're looking back before the 70s, wasn't so established in the way it is today. So the signs were being missed, and I was constantly going back to this person that was of extreme danger. So inflicting pain. There was no sexual abuse from her. There was no sexual abuse when I was a child. But it was inflicting pain, burning my body, physical, like thrown across the room, kicking, beating up. Now, I say thankfully, but it had some kind of emotional scarring because these things happened before the age of 3. So if you think of the stories that we hear in the news, okay, where a child hasn't made it, and we know they're under the age of 7, it breaks our heart. Well, we know, even me saying that now, that's going to really resonate with anyone, because it's like the thought of a child leaving the world in so much pain is quite a horrible thing to even stomach. I survived it. But I had a baby brother that didn't survive it. So I went to, by the age of 3, I was taken into the children's home. Some people say orphanage. It's in the UK, it's called a children's home. And at that point, I was sexually abused. So I suffered with child abuse. Again, these are all things that have been reported. So I'm 3 years old. Then I'm adopted at around the age of 6. I was adopted, and incredible mother who I absolutely love and adore. And one would think, okay, life should get better for a child at this point, right? But it didn't. So for some reason, I've still been let to see my biological mother, and her illness was getting out of control. She had another child by that point. His name's, I've got his picture there. I always have it next to me and I'm talking, because it just makes me feel like calm. And it's like, it feels like he's saying, thank you for sharing my story, because his name is now finally being spoken about, whereas I was the only person that had his name inside me. I was never able to talk about it. Only 2 years now that I've been doing that. So this great last memory with him where he threw up all over me. He was only 9 months old, just about managing to walk, hold on and walk. Threw up all over me. I thought it was kind of gross. But we just had so much laughter But that night I went to sleep. That was the last time I saw him. He was brutally murdered, horrific murder. And when I look back now, I think to myself, I realize how lucky I was. Like, I've been given this gift, and for a long time, for my whole life, I saw it as this. Now I'm separating to be my own entity. But for a long time, it felt like I was living the life that he should have had. So I felt like I was two people living the life. So someone with that kind of trauma definitely needs psychotherapy to help with the healing, to help calm, to help regulate, to give the inner self a sense of peace and calm, and understand that it's not your fault. All these other, things that started coming to me. I was absolutely devastated when he was gone. It took me, I don't think I've actually got over it, but now I'm at peace. I feel like calm. Now, after that was when I was like 6-ish. And by the age of 11, I started getting unwell. I started having like the bleeding and stuff. And this is when ulcerative colitis came into play, and then Crohn's disease. And quick note, they're both inflammatory bowel conditions. One is more treatable and you're able to regulate it. The other one gets a bit more out of control. And because it's a disease, it can go from your mouth to your back passage. It's an inflammation of the bowel or the tract itself. The tract is like from the mouth to the back passage. So I was inflamed from the mouth to the back passage, basically. And I was very, very ill. Now, you think of the trauma I went through and the silence that came with that. Where else is the trauma going to go? It's going to go on the inside, right? And then there's no expression because I'm adopting. I'm with someone that's giving me food, water, a roof over my head, giving me love. Like, how can I tell them I'm not okay? When you're a kid, it's like it's this, and you're adopted. It's kind of this push-pull thing. You want to say so much, but you don't know how to say it because you don't want to hurt that person that's giving you the thing the other person should have given you, So it was all internalized. And yeah, I moved forward quite a bit. By the age of 23-ish, I had my bowel removed. It was planned surgery, but I became very unwell. I went down to about 4 stones. I'm like 9 stones now. So if you think of a 23-year-old at that kind of weight, I was very, very ill. And emergency surgery, had to say bye to my parents and my brother. I've got another brother who I'm very, very close to, and that was tough. But there was no part of me that believed I wasn't going to be okay. So I said bye, but I didn't mean it. I said to my mum, like, it's fine. God's got me. I'm a very strong believer in God. And everyone's got their own thing they use. It could be universe or energy or God or just themselves. But I believe in God. And I made it. I made it. And of all things, in that moment, as I came round, I remember thinking I'm going to be a personal trainer. Of all the things you could freaking think about. Like, yeah, can't move, in so much pain. Yeah, couldn't do the whole walking thing. I had to learn to walk again and coordination and stuff like that. But I was so determined to do something with my life. So I'll pause there. That's the trauma stuff, because you might want to ask me some stuff, but I'll go into the coaching part in a second.
Wow, I really, I'm so angry and touched, and so many raw emotion comes up, because when I have guests over in this podcast, I never do so much research, because I believe in the power of a plain human conversation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I knew there's probably a trauma in your past, but I could never imagine what you've been through. And I know these words means maybe nothing because you hear it all the time, but I'm deeply sorry that what you've been through, and it's really a very hurting point for me, because my trauma is related to this field from another angle. And what you said about being silent and then develop illness that is related to the GI tract. Yeah. It's really resonated with me. Thank you so much for sharing this. This is really broke me from the inside for a second. If there is one thing I cannot stand, is that defenseless people or any creature is being abused. And I was always a fighter and advocate for this. And when I was a paramedic, it was the thing that really got me off my center when I've witnessed events like this. And I'm trying to understand, how does I've been through a lot of adversities in my life and horrendous decade that I've been through. But how does somebody like you that's going through, I'm so humbled because all my military trauma and medical trauma that I've been through, I cannot even compare and try to grasp what you've been through. But how do you pick up yourself and find a purpose? And your purpose was more, when you say personal trainer, I just gonna make it clear, you mean sports wise, right?
Yeah.
How do you pick up yourself?
Of all things.
Of all things.
Yeah, but you're in bed, you're in the hospital bed after major surgery. That's the thing that came to my head. And you said, I'm very grateful for the words you just said to me there. So no matter how many times, anyone says, thank you for sharing a story, or that touched them, or they're angry, or the emotions, like, I take that in, because these are responses I didn't have when I was a kid. So I'm going to absorb it and really see, actually, this is how the world should be. And that helps heal the inner younger me from before. That's the way I look at it. So every praise, every compliment, I take it with no ego. I take it and I just allow myself to absorb, because I think it's the only way we can be, because there was too much that a lot of my life where that didn't happen, and I deserve it. But also it gives justice to other characters in that story, but also to the person saying thank you, because it means it's touched them in a way as well. So yeah, I'm grateful for that. So let me answer your question. How does someone like me, or someone that's been through that kind of journey, make that change? How do I do it? So all I can say is, and I've said this in stuff that I've written before as well, and other things, other conversations, there's just always been something inside me that's believed I could be more. There's just always been it. Sometimes we have that. Sometimes we grow and learn how to have it. And sometimes we just never get it. I'm quite lucky. I'm blessed in the sense I've got this force, like I feel it while I'm talking, that's just there. But you can't just have energy or knowledge and do nothing with it. You have to take action, make decisions and take action, and raise your level of awareness as to what else can you do? What else can you bring to the table? And sometimes it means there's nothing coming back, but someone is going to hear that message. Someone's life is going to change because of one thing you said. I always say, if it's just one person out of the whole wide world, there's billions of people that I can touch and influence, and they change their life, I've done the job I'm meant to do. So it took a lot of focus, determination, grit, and tears to get where I am now. Basically, it's taken a lot of hard work. Up until 9 years ago, just under a year, 9 years ago, I was working in leadership in a Fortune 500 financial company. I was doing really well, and even in that role, I expanded myself. I created a network for Asians, because there wasn't something that was there. After Black Lives Matter happened, the Asian and Black network kind of split, but in a good way. It was in a good way, because resources were needed, for the subjects at that moment that mattered. And it left an opportunity. There's people that need to have some kind of guidance, but also feel like they belong. Hence me being a coach now. When you see that the sense of belonging has such an impact, you realize, actually, I realized that is definitely my calling, to be able to coach. So I do trauma coach, and I'll explain what that is, but I see myself as a mentor, but I haven't positioned myself as that yet. I will be very soon. But at the moment, I'm building that credibility, because I know when you're really good at your work, it shows. It just shows in the numbers. It shows with the words that come back. It shows with the testimonials, and more people want to talk to you. So I always say, let the work do the job it's meant to do, and leverage what's there to be leveraged from it, and keep moving forward. It's not about moving up. It's about moving forward, because we're all human beings. We're all the same level. We've all got the heartbeat, breath, Like, we can't steal any of that. I can't steal your heartbeat. You can't steal my air. There's just abundance of it, right? So when we think on that kind of level, it changes the mindset a little bit. So that's kind of like how I done it, which isn't really an answer. Some people will be like, yeah, but did you do this? Did you do that? No, I just simply really strongly believed in myself. People around me believed in me, like literally 100%, like my partner, my brother, they're my two biggest advocates. And they just would not let me fall. I saw them as parachutes. They just had an idea, always have an idea. Like just before I came in here, my partner was like, can you just proofread this? I was like, yeah, have you seen my colouring pencils by any chance? It's like two different worlds. Like, but it's about us being authentic, being ourselves, because my creative energy might be different from yours, but our impact's the same. And when you're a coach, you are a leader as well. You are a mentor as well. And by belief, that inner belief and working hard and knowing you've got the clear goals that you've got, and knowing also the power from the trauma has now dispersed. I have the power in me. The trauma doesn't have the power in me anymore. That power's gone. The thought of these people that inflicted the power of them still hurting me is gone. And it's about being able to create that energy and that impact with people that have the resources, and then really listening, studying and understanding those resources, which might be psychotherapy, might be coaching, might be having medication, it might be whatever. I've never had medication for my mental state in any way, but it doesn't matter what it is. It's about understanding how that works and then how to use that knowledge and move forward in it and create an influence and change in the world in some way.
This is incredible. You're a very good interviewee because you just you tell a story. You're not guided by questions that are limiting you, which is wonderful. And I definitely think that you should expand yourself and be a motivational speaker, because you definitely have it going for you. Maybe I'm saying it because also maybe I'm kind of trying to ease my kind of rumble inside, because I'm deeply touched by your story, and I want to help our listeners to understand. You take this adversity in your life, and then you find something to cling on, and you just said in a few sentences, yeah, like I've become from from somebody basically in bed and debilitated to be a personal trainer, and then I was working in leadership role in tech of Fortune 500, and then I'm a mentor and coach, and this is incredible. This is something that people would. I'm not even talking about trauma. First of all, the first layer, chronic illness, sometimes they don't believe that they have the ability to do so. Maybe you can break down to us, how can somebody that is now lying in bed find the strength and focus themselves on something? Maybe it can be kind of a leeway drug, like you had with your first job, but to kind of go back to the highway again, from the highway shoulder, and keep on moving.
I get you there. So what I would do is I share the words that my mum said to me when I was rock bottom, and I didn't want to move. I had got home from the hospital. I had the stoma bag, which is when you have your bowel removed, you have to have like something that you stick over, right? The other end of the bowel, so the stool can go into it. So, and I was just thinking, what the hell? I had a lot of hope. But I had no idea how I was going to get there. And I just couldn't stop crying. It was a shock to me how I looked. I just couldn't walk. I was like thinking, this is going to take forever. There's no way. I was thinking, I'm not going to have, I am gay now, but I was thinking, I'm not going to have a boyfriend. No one's going to love me. I'm just probably going to be at home all the time. I just couldn't see a future. At the point of the hospital, I wanted to be a trainer. By the time I got home, within a few days, well, it took a while for me to go home. By the time I got home, I was not in that state. I was like depressed, yeah. And my mum said to me after, I think it was about 3 days, she said to me, she didn't bring the breakfast upstairs. So I had to come down. So I had to like bum down the stairs to get to the kitchen. And I sat down just crying. My head was always like, leaning my forehead on the table. I just didn't want to look at anyone. And she said to me, she came and was like eye contact, and she said to me, girl, because she's Guyanese, she was like, girl, I can't do the accent, but which is a shame. Definitely a child, but she was like, girl, you know, she said, you are my daughter. I did not adopt you. And that moment you became my daughter for you not to be anyone. You are someone. Do you want to be like your biological mum? She said the name of the person.
Yeah.
And obviously there was no way I wanted to be like that. But that person had severe mental health that turned to mental illness that turned into psychopathic traits, right? Diagnosed, yeah. And I just imagined myself being like that. Imagined, you know, being horrible to people. And I just thought it was just a definite no, I'm not going to be that. And she said, you're my daughter. You're someone to me. And I love you. And I want you to be the daughter I've always imagined, however that looks, because you deserve it. You deserve this life. This is more or less word for word what she said, okay? It's not really me paraphrasing. And we both burst into tears, and the love that I felt for myself and the gratefulness I felt for her. And I just dried my tears. I still cried loads, but I dried my tears. I ate my breakfast and I said, I'm ready. I wanted her to do the physiotherapy for me. I wanted to learn how to walk up the stairs. I started envisioning myself being able to walk without support, being able to go to the toilet without support, emptying my stoma without feeling uncomfortable. I just had this surge of, I can do this. Was it easy? No, it was awful. But when you have to recover from an injury or an illness where you've been bedridden for a long period of time, the body simply needs to have movement again. Okay. There's going to be some people where the movement doesn't matter. That's, you know, that's the ability that you have. Some people call that disability. I call it the ability. So it's a matter of saying to yourself, do I want to change? Yes or no. There's no yes, but it's either do I want to change, yes or no. And this is a principle I use in my coaching as well. They say what they want to do. Are you ready for change? Are you willing to put that effort in to make a change? It's very simple yes or no answers. You can't say, I don't know. There's no I don't know. It's your life. And I made that decision. I put the effort in. Just like when I went therapy for 2 years, I've not missed one session every single week, regardless of where I am in the world, regardless whether I feel like talking or not. It's about getting up, whether that's in your wheelchair, whether that's sitting up in the bed, whether it's going to physiotherapy, simply opening curtains. You get up, you do something, you move, and you feel good about moving. It's just the tiny steps that create the proper strong footprints that I always say that the giants leave in the sand, because when you've been through adversity, you're not a person, you're a giant. And the footprints you leave are freaking giant footprints, right? So that's my kind of tip. It would always be the words that made me change, which was from my mum.
This is really incredible. And I thought I'm inspirational.
You are. You are.
No, just kidding. You said 3 very important things there that I want to kind of start with. The first one, I think the support system within chronic illness and recovery in general is incredibly important. The second one is this moment I call this moment hitting rock bottom, or like when you're sick of your sickness, that you enough is enough and now you're ready. And this commitment, the third one, people don't understand that rehabilitation is not as physically hard as it is mentally hard. And it's about decision. It's like you didn't miss a psychotherapy. I didn't miss never, even though I would faint 10 times a day, I would never miss a physical rehabilitation kind of appointment, because I knew that the relapse will be tremendous for me to stay one day in bed. So I think it's really incredible.
And yeah, so and it's their work specifically inspired me to do what I'm doing now. So I can't remember where I was. So we'll have to do the editing to tell you person, but
yeah.
Just tell me where more or less that I was, and I can.
You said that if somebody will look for their work, they will find like much more than what we're talking about here. That it's biological, it's psychological, it's very in depth.
Yeah.
Maybe just if you can wrap it up, like.
Yeah, I will. So, and even if listeners go online and listen to this work, not only will you gain the knowledge, what myself and Roy are talking about will also make sense, and you will find great healing just by watching some of the material. So I'll just wrap that up. Is there a link? Yes, there is a link. Is it proven? Yes, it is proven. And what we can do is something about it. Treatment like somatic psychotherapy or a psychotherapist as well, for example. There's different types, but even coaching. And it depends on what can you afford. No one's going to take you on board unless it's the right thing for you as a trauma coach. It's just, there's that level of, you just have to do what's right for the human being, but it's cheaper. That's the thing. It's cheaper and there's no waiting list. That's the good thing about coaching. There's no waiting list and it's cheaper because there's not loads of trauma coaches out there. We're very few, but you need people that understand their stuff and understand how to get you in a sense of safety, a sense of regulation, and a sense of connection. Yes, if you're not, go on.
So I will just put a little bit this disclaimer here where I'm not recommending, we are not recommending that somebody will choose a coach and not go through psychotherapist because it's just not, it's not a good practice to recommend any of those, right? And you agree with me there.
Oh, absolutely. So we say psychotherapist, but in general, we're talking about therapy. Okay. So nothing here being said, even as a coach, you always seek medical help first.
Yeah.
Okay. We're in the heat of a conversation. This is relative to the conversation in the realms of this conversation. You might just be starting out and you're needing help and support. No matter what you do, number one, just ask for help anyway, because people will always guide you to signpost you. But this conversation in no way replaces you getting professional help. Call your GP, your doctor, find out where you can go, do the research before you go, listen to what other people said about speaking with that person, and go and get the therapy if that's what you're signposted to. It always comes first. We have to put the medical side first because there are people, the professionals know the brain on a higher level, and that's what you need when you've been through trauma. Yeah. So even in my work, I always say therapy first. I'll do screening and make sure the therapy's done first because I don't want to, I had a bad experience with someone that had mental illness, which would be my biological mum, and it wasn't mental health and they were not looked after in the way they should. So I've learned the hard way and there's no way that's being repeated. So always get a professional first, get advice from a professional first.
Thank you for this. There are a lot of hacks out there, and coaching is not a regulated profession in general. And I've seen a lot of people who are, self-proclaimed coaches, and there is a professional responsibility. You're dealing maybe with the deepest form of coaching, the most risky one is trauma. But even in business coaching, there are a lot of people out there that are not very capable, and I think it's always worthwhile to research. We will record another part for this, but because it was just a bliss and such a great learning and human experience for me as a conversation with you, Kharina. And I always like to ask my guests to ask me a question to finish the episode. So if you have any question for me, it will be great to answer.
Oh, lovely. I like that. So when you were little Roy, when you was little Roy before the army, or before that line of work, did you say you was in the army?
I'm Israeli, so we have to be drafted to the army. Yeah, it's mandatory.
Okay, that's a whole other great story. What was it you aspired to be when you were little you? What was the thing? Obviously, you knew you had to do certain stuff. Okay, let's put that aside. That was part of life in Israel. Okay, as an Iranian child, but what was it that you wanted to be and do when you was little Roy? And how close, or have you had the opportunity to do that?
This is one of the best questions I've been ever asked, so thank you for this. I will divide my answer into two. So firstly,
Cool.
this is how I start my book. And my TED Talk, I always wanted to be a doctor. Or so I thought I want to, because I thought that doctors has the best toolkit to help people. I really wanted to help people. But I also wanted to empower people, but I didn't know it was not trendy back then in the late 80s or so, to like this word empowerment. So I didn't know exactly what it entails. I had a moment of clarity around the age of 15 or 16. And I was very connected to my authentic self. And my authentic self back then, before podcast, I wanted to have a radio show. I wanted to have a biology degree. I wanted to have medical training that if something happens, I can respond and help people in need. I wanted to be a sort of an entrepreneur that develops stuff that can help people and empowers them, especially in the field of healthcare. And I must say that I've achieved all of that. But
Yes, you have.
this is crazy, but it took me such a great detour. We're talking about, like, it wasn't just a pit stop. I had to really get off-road, completely flip 10 times and crash and burn so I can drag my burning car back to the track, because I was so convinced that being a doctor is all I need in life to be happy. My complete happiness was tied into this idea. It was totally conditioned. So I stepped away from all of my dreams. And a few weeks before medical school, I actually thought, wow, it's not the right idea for me right now. I'm not prepared. It's not exactly what I want. It's almost there. And then I whooshed right in, just like I did with the military, and I ended up super sick. And eventually I didn't went to medical school. So yes, I'm now where I want to be, but I had to be beaten up pretty badly to get there.
That tells me so much about you as a human being. So much about you.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, there's just so many qualities that come into there. And the fact that you have the chronic illness that came after, but you had that. But yeah, it's kind of telling me in a sense where that came from. There's so much power. Like when we look back at our younger self, and then see how well we've done, as in ourselves. It doesn't matter about anyone else. There's such a great story in that itself. And I think sometimes telling the story of the little child and telling the story as the adult, they're great parallel stories to have, and just see how they kind of interweave, because there's going to be some stuff you told yourself as a kid, the good stuff, that's still going to be in you that you probably still say today. You know, there's going to be things when you look in the mirror that you probably used to say when you was little, and now you're saying it now. So we're definitely going to come back to this conversation, as you say. Look out for part 2, everyone. Thank you for that answer.
Thank you so much for being here, and it's just, this answer resonates with so many things inside of me, because eventually charity work was so important for me, and I always volunteered, and now I found my own place to do it, and this is the purest of moment when you realize what did you want to do and what did you tell yourself, and now I'm very privileged to be healthy enough and strong enough to live the life that I wanted. But I think that in order to kind of remind myself this authenticity, I really have to go through this trauma healing, because I think it's super brave to acknowledge that you have a problem and that you want to heal. And I will be so intrigued to hear in the next part more about your work and how to combine it in my healing journey. Kharina, I can't even start to thank you for your being and authenticity and honesty and being with me here today from the UK. And I can't even wait for our next part. Thank you so much.
Me too. You're very welcome. Me too. I just feel really proud of you. I just wanted to say thank you as well. So I look forward to part 2, because there's going to be some great stuff coming from me. So I can't wait to take everyone on the journey of how I work and what I do. It's going to be so fascinating, even if it's just listening to it and not deciding to do anything, but it's going to make you want to get up and do stuff. So I think, combined, we are a great force of nature. So thank you.
Oh, definitely. Like two giants roaming the world. And you said it just now that you want to get people out of their beds, out of their comfort zone. It's just like this podcast. This is the podcast's idea, to really move people into any direction, to start doing something with their life. So again, thank you so much. And please check out Kharina's work. I'm going to link your website here, and looking forward for our next meeting. This was the first part with Kharina. I'm shaken. You didn't hear most of it because I muted myself so you can hear her better. But my tears and my shaking and my internal struggle and pain when she was talking was real. I'm humbled and honored to have somebody like Kharina in my podcast as a guest. And in the next episode, we're going to talk more about her work as a trauma-informed coach, more about how coaching can help us heal our wounds and help you, whatever you have, a chronic illness or not. See you in the next time.